found the only geek culture showcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3.
This is the Geek Speak Show. The Geek Speak Show talks about and to the movers and shakers in geek culture.
God bless the geeks.
The Geek Speak Show is powered by GeekTyrant.com, Collider.com, RamaScreen.com, and MightyVale.com. Get ready to speak geek on the Geek Speak Show with your host, Henry. That would be me. Hey, everybody, it's Henry. How you doing? Who are you?
Oh, now you're back and now you forget about me.
Oh, yeah. I do have co-hosts here. I haven't seen you guys. I still haven't seen Ariel because she's not here this week. We haven't been together, and it seems like the Avengers. That's where she is. Watching the Avengers for the 28th, 39th time, whatever it is. But yeah, we're all here. All sort of. The producers are here. Everybody's behind the scenes. Ariel is not here because she's in San Diego again, getting in line for Hall H. But Rachel is here. I'm here. Last time I saw you actually was at Big Wow, which was a couple of weekends ago now.
Yeah.
It was kind of a big wow. It was pretty cool. I've always liked Big Wow because I know it was called something else before, but it's Big Wow. The second year I was Big Wow, but because it's a lot like what WonderCon used to be, smaller and actually about comic books. How about that? A comic book convention about comic books. We got to meet Jim Lee, was the big one on Sunday only. Ryan Sook was there. A lot of the people that we talked to, Jane Wheedlin, we got to meet. You met what is it called? Another Myself.
Another Myself. Yep.
Pretty cool.
Couple other pretty cool artists.
Yeah, Another Myself was an interesting. I'll call it that. Interesting comic book. Which tease here. You will hear a little bit later in the show from somebody involved with Another Myself. So there you go. That's what you call a tease. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. All our coverage is up on our YouTube page. You can check it all out there. You can see most of you guys, because really, I already told you guys I was going to be on vacation, so I was in vacation when I didn't really want to do anything, so I'll let you and Louise handle
so we had
everything.
To take over. Speaking
of Louise, you guys heard her last week. She's doing a new feature. You guys loved it. I got a lot of emails on it. You can keep sending them. Henry at thegeekspeakshow.com. Say hi, say bye, say whatever you want to say. No, I'm not going to share my recipes. But you guys did like that new feature, although she did talk Avengers. Again, she can't get it out of her head. But this is about movies. You've all had those conversations. I know you guys have in your geek family. You know, somebody hasn't seen a movie and you've got to revoke their geek
And then we
card.
call each other at midnight and yell at them to go watch it.
Yeah, now you can have Louise yell at them. Or at least tell them about the movie. So this week, she actually has a pretty cool movie that I do like. I have seen it, and I do like it. It's directed by Joe Johnston, who did a little movie last year about the first Avenger. Yeah, I think you guys know which movie I'm talking about, because it has a lot of the same elements and the same feel as that one. So, a couple of things to talk to you before we do get started with the show. One is, in a couple of weeks, finally, I've been talking about teases. Been teasing you guys with the Geek Speak Video Show. Now I need makeup and all that stuff because you guys can actually see us. These two, Ariel, Rachel, they don't have to worry about that. But me, I've always had a face for radio. So
you just want an assistant, we know.
No. And this is, finally, I can give you all the details. This is what it's going to be. First, that's the name. This will be the pilot episode. I mean, that's what you call the first episode. It'll be Saturday, June 9th at 12 p.m. And we're going to start it with Flying Colors.
Woot woot.
Yeah, that's a hint. Flying Colors comics and other cool stuff. Where else would we start? 2980 Treat Boulevard in Concord. Joe Field is calling it Hulk Smash Brownie Day. Joe can't get over the Avengers either. Obviously. And honestly, I was talking to Joe last night. It's really a big thank you day. Thank you to all the Flying Colors faithful who, according to Joe, they made May 2012 and it's a couple hours a day away from being the end. But May 2012, believe it or not, in its 24-year history, this was the biggest all-time selling month for the store. So,
it deserves applause.
Well, Joe's going to do more than that. He's actually going to do... We're going to be filming, of course, but everybody who goes there, if you miss Free Comic Book Day especially, well, Joe's got something for you. Free comics! Literally.
Gee.
Free comics for... Not like Free Comic Book Day, but just free comics just for going there. He's also going to have... We're going to do what called a jam comic. That's what Joe calls it, meaning if you're an artist... professional or unprofessional, or if you just do stick figures, hey, come on in. We'll join the fun too. You guys can come in and we're going to do a jam comic, which means everybody draws one panel. I mean, we'll tell you what the story is so we don't get all kinds of stuff, but everybody will draw one panel, and in the end, we'll have one big jam comic, meaning everybody took part in it and created that comic book. So we'll do that. They'll have graphic novels and traded paperbacks for as low as 80% off. You guys were stuck there for a while on Free Comic Book Day.
Yes.
They also have special coupons, or one coupon for everyone to use only on that Saturday. What is it? I don't know. It's a secret. You have to go there. But you know, Joe's stuff is always pretty cool. Comic Slams. This one I kind of like, and Ariel was really, and Louise are really looking forward to this one. Dramatic readings of dialogue from classic comics. And I'm not sure. Got to get together with Joe on this one. I'm not sure if it's us who are going to do it, or it's you guys, or a combination of. But either way, it'll be fun just watching somebody say, "My spider sense is tingling," or something like
exactly.
that. Or maybe you can say it. You got to get, if it's from classic comics, some girl has to come up to the microphone and the camera and say, "Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot." That was the introduction of Mary Jane. So that'll be happening again June 9th, Saturday, June 9th at 12 p.m. Go to Free Comic Book Day, the home of Free Comic Book Day. Flying Colors Comics and other cool stuff. The cool stuff for that day will be the Geek Speak Show, filming the pilot episode for the Geek Speak Video Show. Yes, you'll get to see it. You'll get to see and hear us geek out about stuff. And you're going to be a part of it. We're going to have the camera pointed on you guys and also the microphones. And Rachel will be there. We'll all be there. You'll meet the producers. You'll meet everybody behind the scenes. And Libby's brownies.
Yes.
The Hulk Smash brownies.
They're really good.
If you guys went there for Free Comic Book Day and you had them, you're going to get them again. Limited supply, however. Joe let me know it's a very limited supply. So all the more reason to get there early. I'm tired already. We haven't even done it yet. Next thing, not done. Next thing, you guys hear about Collider.com, here Geek Tyrant, here Rama Screen. They've been our Collider, especially has been with us from the day we launched this thing. We have a new one, Mightyville.com. They haven't launched yet. They are launching with fireworks and everything. No, literally, because they'll launch on 4th of July. July 4th, go to Mightyville.com or just go to our link section there on there. They're going to it's a new, it's a comic book site, but it's not really news. They're going to have news, of course, and breaking news and all that stuff. But they're going to make this more interactive. They being the two people in charge of it. I met them. They came here into the studio last week. Very cool people and real geeks. They know their stuff. They're not just doing this just because we can. Summer K and Joe Catch, two good people. They like I said, they do know their comic books and they do know comic book people, and they were at Big Wow. They're going to be at what is it called, SacCon, Sacramento Convention this weekend, and they're making connections and getting some stuff for you guys. Yeah, by the way, they're going to have contests. What more reason to go than free stuff for you. It's also the interactive part. I'm going to have them on and they can explain it all to you. But from what I understand, it's going to be for people like you who are artists, up and coming artists. They can post their stuff on there, whether you're a writer, whether you're an actual artist, an inker, any of that stuff. You can post it on there. And there you go. It will be seen by the public, by fellow comic book fans, and you get a chance to say, yeah, I like that, or yeah, why don't you try this? Be nice about it, though. That's the whole thing.
Of course. They
told me the whole goal for this thing was to be different from other websites. Other websites, and we're not going to name names, other websites go on there and the talkbacks usually become into a big fanboy argument. That's not what they want to do. I told them good luck with that, because that's usually what fanboys do. I mean, look at our own David Lee. He gets into that. Although he will surprise you a little this week with his comics commentary. That's coming up in just a few minutes. So there you go. The Geek Speak Video Show pilot episode again, Saturday, June 9th. Reserve that date. Be there. Flying Colors Comics and other cool stuff in Concord, California, 2980 Treat Boulevard. But all of you know how to get there. I mean, it's Joe's store. Come on. You've been there how many times? You were even there before you became a part of this show.
That's true.
So be there again for that. You'll be on TV. Well, yeah, I guess on TV. You'll be on the video with us, and also Mightyville. You can go on there now. They don't have anything there except to sign up for you guys. Put in your email, and you'll get a newsletter. Pretty cool newsletter coming. I got a little preview. It's coming pretty soon, and they launch again with your fireworks on July 4th. So I'm tired again just talking about the Geek Speak Video Show and Mightyville and all the stuff that's going on. I'm ready for another break.
Ready for another break.
So let's take a quick one, and we'll come back and talk something actually kind of cool. You like sci-fi, right? I like sci-fi.
We all like sci-fi. Let's be real.
Yeah, so let's talk a new project on Kickstarter that's going through Kickstarter, and well, it could use your help because they haven't gotten any funding.
You guys are going to love it.
Yeah, right. They haven't gotten any funding. It has to be the most quickest funded project on Kickstarter. Yes, I'm talking about that. Stay right there. You'll hear from Space Command.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, for our next attraction...
Comics Commentary with David Lee on the Geek Speak Show.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Comics Commentary with me. Man, you guys are starting to bust my balls here. I've been looking for ideas, looking for feedback from all of you for weeks now. I haven't heard a damn thing. Come on, guys. Shoot me an email. Hit me up on Facebook. I've got an email out there, davidlee@thegeekspeakshow.com. Feel free to email me. Shoot me your thoughts. You guys want to hear something talked about? Let me know. I'm here. Use me. So normally with this comics commentary, I talk about some negative things, and I usually always rant about some stuff I don't like. Well, this episode's going to be a lot different. For once, I'm going to talk about something I like. So for the last few months, Marvel Comics has been publishing a storyline called The Ends of the Earth for Amazing Spider-Man and some other Splinter titles. For one, I think I'd actually like to go into how much I've been enjoying this storyline, especially the portrayal of Doc Ock. Back when Amazing Spider-Man first came out, Doc Ock was just this bowl-cut, flabby-looking dude with some extra arms. You kind of almost couldn't take him seriously. And whenever Spider-Man and him fought, of course, Ock with his cheesy lines, and then Spider-Man would always beat him. He was just one of those characters that you ended up loving to hate because you were kind of like, wow, why? Why is this character here? But then you just kind of started liking it. It was like, wow, Doc Ock shows up, something might be going bad. A little bit later in the series, Doc Ock was the founder of an enemy faction called the Sinister Six. The Sinister Six obviously has been one of Spider-Man's most hated enemy stables, as it were. They originally consisted of Sandman, Rhino, Electro. I want to say no, it wasn't Hobgoblin. Doc Ock, obviously, and I believe Venom was in there for a while. I could be missing a couple members. Oh yes, and Chameleon, he was in there as well, and Kraven. There we go. I think I got all of them. Could be wrong, though. Moving on. So Doc Ock began planting more and more sinister ideas out there and started getting, serious about things. He started becoming a major player in Spider-Man's life. Excuse me. He began to create a lot more sinister plots and became a major player in Spider-Man's rogues gallery. He was portrayed in the movies by the amazing Alfred Molina, which I actually really, really liked Molina's portrayal of Doc Ock. It was awesome. And now we jump forward to the comic I'm going to be talking positive about, The Ends of the Earth. Spoilers here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's check out some spoilers. So if you haven't read the series, go away now and come back in about, say, 5 minutes. Go get yourself a quick brunch. You gone? Good. Amazing Spider-Man Ends of the Earth is basically Doc Ock's swan song. He's dying. He's not long for this world, and he wants to do one last thing. Well, in Doc Ock's case, he gets back with most of the original Sinister Six, and he basically puts satellites up in the galaxy, up above the Earth, and he basically tells the world, look, let me help you. Let me stop these satellites. Let me stop what's going on. Let me be the hero. I don't have long left. I want to give you this. And then he goes on to add on, if you don't, they're going to be blown up and you will die. With the help of the Sinister Six, things go pear-shaped really fast. You end up finding out along the lines that, yeah, Doc Doc's plan's a lot more nastier than you think. Spidey has to figure out all kinds of ways to stop him. And you also learn how menacing Doc Ock can be. In all of the titles I've read with Ends of the Earth, I have not had a single problem. I love how Doc Ock has brought himself up to be this huge bastard in the series. And he's actually shown that he's more than worth his salt as a Spider-Man villain. If and when they do choose to write Doc Ock out, not gonna lie, I'm gonna shed a tear. I love him. I love the Ends of the Earth so far. Marvel, if you're listening, please finish strong. This has been such a good arc so far. Finish strong and make everybody happy. So, with that out of the way, before I go ahead and sign off of here, I'd like to go ahead and talk about something that's coming out very soon. I want to say June 17th, I believe. It is to DVD and Blu-ray. It's a good old cartoon by the ever awesome DC Comics Entertainment Division called Superman vs. the Elite. Keep an eye on it, kids. It's going to be awesome. And the reason I say this is because it was actually based on one of my favorite Superman comics ever. If you guys want to know what I'm talking about, go pick up a copy of Action Comics 775 and read it. You won't be disappointed. And this was actually one of the comics that won awards. I'm not going to tell you anything about it other than to tell you it's awesome. Go look it up and then have a watch it, Superman vs. the Elite. I know I'll be watching it with very bated breath and happy tones coming out of me. Until next time, this is me, David Lee. I've already given you guys the imploring pledge to email me. Give me something to work with, guys. I need to know what you guys are thinking. Come on, shoot me an idea. Shoot me some ideas. I really don't feel like having to paint Henry's house just to keep my job here. So until next time, this is me, David Lee, saying see you in 7 in the funny pages.
I'm Zach, and you're listening to the Geek Speak Show.
Hold on a second. Once more, with flavor.
Yeah. Oh, I'm Zach Whedon, and you're listening to the Geek Speak Show.
It's compelling! What's gonna happen to these kids?
See, Ariel's not here, so I can interrupt this song.
She would be dancing if she
all
were.
I want. So welcome back to the Geek Speak Show. So the Whedons had a kind of little movie come out. Well, the older one, the older Whedon.
Yes.
So now let's talk about another movie that's going to be coming out pretty soon, but it's a little different. It's going about it a little different than the usual go through the big studios and spend the billions and gazillions of dollars. Everything that the Avengers made, that's what they spend usually on marketing for most of these movies. That movie, or series of movies, I should say, is Space Command. And we have producer Marc Zicree on with us. Marc, welcome to the Geek Speak Show.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. We're all of us here, there's a reason why we call this show the Geek Speak Show. We are all sci-fi geeks here. And the second I saw this, I said, I got to get, and I have actually gotten behind, funded you guys, so helped you out with that. I have gotten behind you, and I said, we've got to do everything we can to get this made.
Yes.
And
thanks for that.
And obviously everybody's responding because you guys, I think, have to be one of the fastest projects to be funded on Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, it was great. We scheduled 2 months to raise $75,000, and we raised it in just over 3 days. So now we're up to $130,000. We've still got the rest of 2 months to raise the money, and it's going great. It's just I've never raised money before, and this was a totally new venture for me. Everything else I've written has been for the studios and the networks, and so this is boldly going where I'd never been before.
Yeah. For the two of you that haven't heard about Space Command, tell us all about Space Command.
You bet, absolutely. Well, first of all, I love the fact that this is Geek Speak because I definitely qualify. When they come to round us all up and take us off to our individual cells, I'm going to be on the truck, and because I'm definitely it's funny. My friend Chris Black says the way is like you say the bearded Spock, and if people get it, they that's part of the thing. So but the thing is, Space Command is. I came up with this because essentially, I'm a big the 3 shows that made me want to be a science fiction writer were Star Trek, Outer Limits, and Twilight Zone, the original versions of the show. And I've written for many of the genre shows, Next Gen and DS9 and Babylon 5 and Sliders and on and on and on. And I grew up, reading Heinlein and Bradbury and Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke and all those great writers. And I thought, okay, I want to create essentially my own universe that's very reminiscent of what the 50s view of what our future would be what was. Because when I was reading all of those books, like the Martian Chronicles and Half Spacesuit Will Travel and all of those, and watching movies like Forbidden Planet, and later I became aware of Space Patrol, a great show from the 50s. It was really a shared universe. It was a shared vision of what would happen in our future, and it was a great design aesthetic. And we kind of lost that. The one thing that no one ever wrote about in science fiction when I was growing up was the idea that we would go to the moon and then stop. And so, so I'm glad with SpaceX and things like that, we're starting to get that whole Jones on for manned exploration again. And so Space Command very much speaks to that, and it really looks back to look forward in terms of that sense of adventure and that sense of possibility. You
mentioned Forbidden Planet a second ago. That I got to say that movie's got to be considered the granddaddy of all sci-fi, because we had Ben Bird on a few weeks ago, and he was talking about when he did the sounds for Star Wars, he got inspired by Forbidden Planet too.
Yeah, well, I always say that my two favorite Star Trek movies are Forbidden Planet and Galaxy Quest.
Yes.
So basically it's there's basically when you look at sort of the science fiction of that period, it goes into two different camps. One is sort of the starship, other systems, all of that, like Forbidden Planet, and then there's much more the sort of hardware oriented. We colonize Mars, we expand into our solar system, and Space Command is going to be a meeting of sort of those two science fiction worlds, and it's thrilling. And I've also reached out to a lot of my friends from Next Gen and DS9 and all these other shows, and to be to be in Space Command. So it's going to be a series of features, starting with the first one that I'm writing now, and I've outlined the second and the third one, and I know what the fourth one's going to be. And it's a huge, big, epic story, and I have a lot. I have incredibly talented friends, thank God, and we're building sets and generating effect shots even as we speak. We're not waiting to be picked.
Yeah, we're going to get into the story and into you guys, the team behind the scenes, a little bit. Before we do that, let's talk about the actors that are going to be in Space Command.
Yes. And, I sort of gather a bouquet of people around me. And anytime I see someone really talented, I make efforts to meet them. And I remember when I saw the pilot of Deep Space Nine, and I saw Armin Shimmerman as Quark, I was just blown away by him. I thought he was terrific. And so Les Landau, who was a director on the show, was attached to a pilot of mine at the time. And I said to Les, I want to meet that guy. And he took me on the set of Deep Space Nine, and there was Armin in what he calls his Ferengi drag, the whole Ferengi makeup with the teeth and the whole 9 yards. And I actually remember asking him if he ever if those teeth ever hurt him, if he ever bit down, and he said yes. And so he would take them out between takes, those really sharp teeth. And I said, I'm a producer and I'm going to hire you. And from then on, everything I did, whether it was sliders or Lazarus Man or pilots or anything, I would cast Armin. And so definitely he was the first person I reached out to on Space Command. So he's aboard playing a character named Darian, and Ethan Phillips is aboard playing a character named Alton Fenulus, and Doug Jones, who played Pan in Pan's Labyrinth, and Abe Sapien, I'm writing a role for him. Dor Nevin, and then I just the other day Neil Gaiman introduced me to Amber Benson from Buffy, and I really like her, and she's hot, eager to be part of this. So I'm going to create a role for her, and Bill Mumy from Lost in Space. We worked together in Babylon 5, so I'm going to find something for him to do. And there's sort of a ripple effect of just these wonderful, wonderful actors. Robert Picardo is someone I very who we're looking for ways to work together on this, and and George Takei. I was nominated for Hugo and Nebula in 2008 for World Enough in Time, which was this Star Trek episode I made with George Takei that was done without a studio or network, and so George, I very much want him to be aboard too. That'll be dependent on his schedule and availability, because he's incredibly busy. But definitely we want to work together again.
Yeah, just those names alone, that's enough to get anybody involved in this behind us. So again, we're talking to Marc Zicree. He's the producer of Space Command series of movies coming. So now let's go ahead and talk about the people behind the scenes, including yourself. So tell us about your team.
Yeah, well, in terms of myself, of course, as I mentioned, I've been on the vast majority of the popular genre shows of the last several decades. I was a writer on them, and I started in animation. I did Smurfs and He-Man and Super Friends and Real Ghostbusters, and then jumped over to Next Gen and all of those shows. And so as I would work on those shows, I would recognize really talented people, and I would invite them aboard. So there's a terrific effects guy named Doug Drexler. Most recently, he did Battlestar Galactica, but he comes off Next Gen and DS9 and Voyager and Enterprise, and most recently he's been working on Blood and Chrome, and now he's doing my friend Rockne O'Bannon's show Defiance, which is about to debut, and so we started talking about all these wonderful science fiction writers that we grew up with and that we loved, and visualizing using the whole CG bag of tricks, that design aesthetic of the 50s, and we just really saw eye to eye, and then I also knew Mike Okuda, who was a designer on Trek, and so he's aboard now as well, and then beyond that, there's a director. It was interesting. I was on the radio a couple of years ago, and there was on Coast to Coast, and there was a director who heard me in Germany, and he had been directing hundreds of music videos and commercials. He was working with guys like U2 and Manowar, these big bands. But he wanted to be a science fiction director, so he moved here to LA for me to mentor him. And under my guidance, he made 9 science fiction movies in a row, all profitable. And his great skill, because he'd done so much work, was he could work on a low budget and make something that looked amazing, that looked like it was a multi-million-dollar film. And so we were looking for something to do together, and that's when I came up with the idea for Space Command and wrote the series Bible and the outlines for the films and all of that. So, and also I should mention my friend Michael Reeves, who I wrote the Star Trek episode with World Enough in Time. We both wrote for Next Gen, and Michael's currently writing books with Neil Gaiman, writing Star Wars novels, and he and I have been friends forever. So the fourth script he and I are writing together, and that's going to be quite remarkable.
Yeah, and Coast to Coast AM is a very, very popular show. I listen to it myself every night. So you got to tell, although people already know who heard you guys on there, you got to tell everybody George Norrie's also going to be in Space Command. That's
right. Well, it's very, very funny because George is a dear friend, and I'm on Coast to Coast often, and we're both, of course, Twilight Zone fans, needless to say, and so George, I was looking for a way to have George in this, and he told me that a guest had once come on the show and said that George would be reincarnated as a talk show host named Dexter Monterey. So he's going to be playing that role in Space Command.
Well, and a lot of these people that you've mentioned have worked on some pretty huge names when it comes to our geek culture. So why did you decide to bypass going through a movie studio and move to this Kickstarter idea instead?
I'll tell you why. But one name I should mention, because I just remembered, is Ian McCaig. My friend Ian McCaig, who is the lead character designer on the last 3 Star Wars films and on John Carter and Harry Potter. He's also we're talking about him doing designs for the characters as well. So he's another dear friend. So I just want to get his name in because he's spectacular.
Oh, I'm excited.
Just the little name that we forgot.
Yeah, because Ian's terrific. And what's so funny, because Ian's my artist on Magic Time, which is a series of novels I've been doing that started as a TV pilot, and we are just such dear friends. And so he designed the barbarian Sulu and Sulu's daughter in World Enough in Time, the Star Trek episode. And it's very funny because I met with Ian a couple months ago before I'd even started writing the Space Command script, and I told him about the characters, and he said, "Well, can you write me a scene so I can see how these characters interact and so forth." So that night I went home and wrote a scene at like midnight and sent it off to him, and that scene's now in the first script, but it's 2 of our characters who are really interesting design challenges, and so Ian called me and he said, what I'm really interested in doing, possibly if it'd be okay, is designing these characters and then maybe coming down to LA and filming that scene as a test with your actors, and then in post-production altering them to look like these designs, rather than doing it with makeup, doing it in post-production with CG. And it's like, wow, yes. I mean, one thing you learn with such talented friends is you just say yes to them. Whatever they want to do, you say yes. And but to answer your question, Rachel, about why we're doing Kickstarter rather than going the traditional route, because as I said, I've sold over 100 scripts, and all of them have been to the studios and the networks, and they've spent probably hundreds of millions of dollars making the shows I've written, because the scripts I write generally get made, and but it always comes with a price, and I've been very lucky on Next Gen and on DS9 and on when I did Far Beyond the Stars and on Sliders. I've generally had very good studio and network executives, and their notes have been very smart. But a lot of my friends, they have the problem where there's 15 executives, they're all giving notes that disagree, and the show just goes down and down and down. We've all seen that, where you'll be waiting eagerly for some science fiction show to debut or a movie, and you watch it, it's like, oh no, and it goes south. And the reason is because the person who's paying the bills has the say. So if they say put a funny robot in it or whatever, give the character a funny alien animal, or it's like, oh no, it's a Pomeranian with horns or whatever, and it's like, oh god, so, and sometimes that can work. I mean, I might do it in Space Command, but the thing is, with Kickstarter, I mentor literally thousands of people in the industry. I run a roundtable of writers and directors and actors and producers, and it's grown from 6 people to several thousand over 19 years, and And I started seeing that these, the people coming to my roundtable were mounting projects on Kickstarter, and I became very interested. And I realized that it was a direct communication between the audience and the artist, and I really liked that. It was sort of what I did with World Enough in Time when I did the Star Trek New Voyages episodes, because I saw that fans were making their own Star Trek episodes, and you didn't need a studio or a network anymore to make something that was of the same quality. You just needed people of goodwill. And so this Kickstarter is just an evolution of what I did with World Enough in Time, except with Star Trek, the one caveat was we couldn't sell it. We could make it, but we couldn't sell it because it qualified as a fan film. So Space Command, I'm just creating something that that I don't have to go to Paramount and say, pretty please. In this case, I'm bringing everything I've ever brought, my whole all of my talents and all of my friends' talents to do. It's going to be every bit as good as what we would do for Paramount or Universal or Warner's or any of those guys, except that they won't be able to have put in their 2 cents.
Yeah, I did watch your Kickstarter, and I actually thought it was really cool. It was more like a calling for all geek and sci-fi fans to watch this and at least be a part of it in some way. But yes. I've seen others too. So do you think that like a dramatic or comedic movie on Kickstarter would have had the same kind of response that you did, or is this really just more proof that the sci-fi audience is huge
and loyal?
Well, yeah, well, I think the answer to that is yes and no. I mean, in terms of whether it would be cross genres, the science fiction fans are unique, and I love that. I love the fact that you can go to a convention and you can meet the top people working in the genre. I met Guillermo del Toro at Comic-Con, and now we're doing a book together. And I've met many. And even when I was a kid, I started going to science fiction conventions when I was 16, and I met my heroes. I met David Gerrold and Dorothy Fontana and Theodore Sturgeon, who became my first mentor, and Harlan Ellison, that Roman candle, and who's a friend, and so it's. I always say about Harlan Ellison that he burns his bridges while he's on them. But the thing is, and Ray Bradbury, who's now a friend. Again, you science fiction fans, you can meet your heroes. You can, and there's a great quality of science fiction that's kind of, everyone in the pool. It's not exclusionary, and I love that about science fiction. I mean, that's why. Those of us who create science fiction embrace the fans and love the fans, because we are fans. It's like it's like I'm going to be at the same. When the day that Prometheus opens, I'm going to be in the line.
Yes.
Obviously.
Us too.
And it was so great that when I reached out to Damon Lindelof, whom I know, he gave us a blurb for Space Command, and he's the writer of Prometheus and created Lost. So there's a great democratic quality to that. In terms of will Kickstarter work for other kinds of projects? Yes. I mean, yesterday when I was with Neil Gaiman. He showed me the website, the Kickstarter campaign for Amanda Palmer, his wife, who just raised $1 million on Kickstarter for her new album. She's a singer. And so there is possibility there, but I think you have to plan your campaign. I didn't come to this with arrogance. I didn't assume that just because I was Marc Scott Zicree, that something amazing was going to happen. I spent 2 months researching it and learning, and I realized I would have to learn a new language because I've never raised money before. It was something I didn't know how to do, and I had no idea if this would work. And I'm very, very glad and grateful that it is working.
Yeah, and the other thing is like with Comic-Con and all those things, I mean, like you said, that is part of us being a geek. We automatically go to anything that had, like you said, we're going to be there for Prometheus. Yes. We were all there for the Star Trek, even though it wasn't our Star Trek, quote unquote. We still were there and loved it. I mean, that you're right. That is part of being a geek, the passion that you have for sci-fi, whether it's Star Wars or whatever it is.
And also, I should say that we're rooting for it to work. It's sort of like, I was really glad that JJ pulled it off. It's not the same as the series, but of course it wouldn't be. But that's good. He's bringing a new energy to it. It was very, very funny because when I was going to do World Enough in Time, the George Takei thing, I actually had lunch with JJ, and I wanted to roll this out and let him know I was doing it, because if he didn't know it was me, he could just call business affairs and tell them to shut us down. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to have that happen, so I let him know. But I went on the set when he was shooting his first Star Trek movie, and I was very glad because I saw that he was honoring what had gone before. And again, I think as long as you're respectful in what you do, for instance, Space Command, I mean, I think people really get the authenticity of what we're doing. We're not there's no tongue in cheek, there's no wink of the eye. We're going to really put our hearts on the line. That's what I'm doing now. And tomorrow we're shooting interviews with some of our actresses, and to talk about their roles. And it was great fun meeting Amber Benson and saying, hey, want to play in my little yard here? It's and she's really cool, and I really like her. And and when you find what you find with these people is that once you meet them, if you have something to offer that's really of value, they want to be part of it. It's not, it doesn't become about money at all. And none of us are doing this for the money. That's irrelevant. I mean, we need money. The more money we raise, the better and the quicker we can make this, and the more of them we can make. But that's not why we're doing it. If I hadn't raised the money, we'd still make this film. I would, we'd find the way to make it because we love it and we want to do it.
Now, we don't do spoilers on the show. We try to avoid them as much as we can. But can you talk a little bit about the story itself?
Yeah, and because I can, because people want to know that they want to know there's more than just the sizzle. They want the steak, and me too. And I mean, what I can say is that it's a big epic story, and I just put out a line on the Kickstarter page where I said, you've heard of a 5-year arc. This is a 200-year arc, where we're basically going to be covering. It's basically man going out into space in the vision that when we talk about Chesley Bonestell and all those guys who are envisioning our journey out into the solar system and out into the larger universe, we're going to be basically looking at that in a way that looks back with reverence, but also looks forward with great hope and great vision. And we're basically following two families as they go out into this adventure, and we continue it out into the stars. But it's not chronological. When Heinlein laid out the future history, he was doing stories all along that timeline, and we're going to be integrating these two families, the generations, and what happens to them over this great span of this story. And we'll be really looking at what this means. And it's going to be a hopeful story and a visionary story. And I strongly believe in the power of love and honor and loyalty and all of those things. They're not corny to me at all. But you also have to recognize the darkness. Our species has had war and all of these terrible ills since we came out of the trees. And I don't think that just going out in space is going to solve that or cure that. But I think going out into space and having that vision of the future, I mean, for God's sake, when we landed on the moon, it was a great moment. And yes, it was to beat the Russians and all of that nonsense. But the Cold War is over now, and we can look back at that moon landing as one of the high points of our species. And there was honor there, and there was bravery, and there was nobility, regardless of the motives of the politicians. There was something more to it than that. And so that's what we're going to really be looking at. It'll be the best of mankind, and it's going to be a big, wonderful story. And I'm writing it now. I can't wait.
Sounds a lot actually like what Gene Roddenberry's vision for Star Trek was.
Yeah, well, I worked with Gene on Next Gen, and I met him, from when I was a teenager, and again, it's fascinating because when Roddenberry, there was a real mixture. He had clay feet, and it's fascinating. I mean, I won't go into some of the things I know about Gene, but he was putting the best of himself in Star Trek, and just because someone may be flawed as a human being doesn't mean that they can't have a vision. It's so interesting when the FBI was taping Martin Luther King and dishing all this dirt on Martin Luther King. It was irrelevant in the long run because he had a vision for a future. It's funny, Armin and I just shot a video for Space Command that we posted on our Kickstarter page, and we're about to launch the website as well. And we were talking about Far Beyond the Stars because I came up with that episode of Deep Space Nine, and I was talking about why science fiction is important. And Armin asked me that question. He said, well, why is science fiction important? And I said, well, look at Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King gave a speech where he said, I have a dream. And he's in that moment, in that speech, he becomes a science fiction writer because he's talking about a future that has not yet occurred, that he's seeing. And in telling that story, he's helping to create that future. Okay? So that's what we're doing. And it isn't that I think that the what I'm laying out in Space Command will literally become what happens. But I think that the more we seize the public imagination and the more we put our hearts and our souls and the totality of ourselves on the line and create something that everyone can just be part of, and something that takes our breath away. I mean, the first time I saw 2001 or the first time I saw Star Trek, you just sit there with your mouth open and you say, I want to live there. I want to be part of that. And there's a reason to create these futures. I enjoyed Battlestar Galactica, but I don't really think that a dystopic future is I was going to say I don't think it's helpful, and that's not valid. I mean, I loved Battlestar Galactica, and I loved what Ron Moore did, and all of my friends who worked on that show. But I believe in a hopeful future. I do. We're still here. My God, the fact that we invented nuclear weapons and we haven't blown ourselves up instantly. Remarkable. The fact we've gone this long without that happening, shows that there's a better side to mankind, that there is some sanity in these crazy monkeys that we are, And so I'm, I believe in the power of love and the power of hope and the power of us being our best selves.
Yeah, so the director will be Neil Johnson for Space Command. Marc Zicree is the producer. Doug Drexler doing the effects. Ian McKay just came on the team. That is why everybody's gotten behind it. Now, one more thing I want to say, Mark, before we let you go. Space Command, the project Space Command, is going to be a very, I'll say, inspirational project for everybody else that sees it. And it's going to inspire them or push them, give them that final push to do whatever it is they want to do, whether it's a song, a book, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If Space Command is giving somebody that final push, what kind of advice would you give them?
In terms of creating things, in terms of doing something?
Yeah.
I think, one lesson I've learned in my life is that, like, for instance, if I'm walking down the street and someone's asking me for a buck, I give them a buck. If someone needs help, I help them. If I have that moment where I can be my better self or my worst self, I've trained myself, and it took training to be my best self, to take that action, whatever that action is, to not hesitate. And so, and I should say that Space Command won't just be hopeful stories. It's not going to be preachy. It's going to be drama. There's going to be a lot of excitement and space battles and villains and all sorts of stuff. All the stuff that's really fun. But if it encourages people to reach out to others, to help others, to lift someone else up, to create something that moves someone and makes them better and makes them braver. I mean, I recently came up, or a few years ago, I came up with The Secret of Life. And I tried to make it simple because I was speaking to a group of kids and their parents. And I said, as near as I can tell, the meaning of life is be happy, be kind, be brave. And that's it.
That is it. So
that is so inspirational.
Thank you.
Yeah, Marc Zicree. Space Command movie is the website. You can go on our link section. It's all on there. The Kickstarter. If you guys haven't gotten behind it, do definitely get behind this one. Really looking forward to this one, Mark. So thanks a lot for coming on. You are welcome back anytime. We'll hope to have you back on just when you're ready to premiere the pilot episode.
Well, thanks, Henry and Rachel. And if you want to come on the set when we're shooting, we'll give you a really flashy death scene.
Oh, pick me.
Absolutely. We got to talk afterwards. So Mark, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you later.
Great.
The Geek Speak Show will be back in a moment. Geek Movie Rewind. The movies that made you a geek.
Except for the part where you didn't see them.
Here's the Geek Speak Show's resident movie geek, Louise Cray.
Hey, I'm Louise Cray, and on today's installment of Movie Rewind, we'll be talking a little bit about a movie called The Rocketeer. I love this movie. It's just a whole lot of fun, and it seems like a lot of people I run into haven't seen it. I think this is sad. I don't want you to miss out, so listen. The Rocketeer was released by Disney in 1991 and based on a superhero character created in the 80s by Dave Stevens. Cliff Secord, the Rocketeer, is sort of this all-American type guy, a down-on-his-luck pilot who discovers a futuristic jetpack that was created by one Mr. Howard Hughes, who, by the way, is played by Terry O'Quinn from Lost. Anyway, did I mention the jetpack? The dude's got a jetpack. He flies around being a hero, and he's called the Rocketeer, which is awesome. The character is an homage to the Saturday matinee serials of the 30s and 40s, which, listen, if you love Indiana Jones, you owe it to yourself to watch this movie. And it has a really marvelous soundtrack by James Horner, which you've probably actually heard on sports TV or at theme parks without realizing it. And rather excellent effects for the time. They hold up. Cliff, the Rocketeer himself, is played by Billy Campbell, a relative unknown at the time, and sort of still. He played Quincy Morris in Coppola's Dracula. Wikipedia reminds me, helpfully. Anyway, Cliff's cohorts include Alan Arkin as his mechanic buddy, who I can't help but be a little bit in love with whenever I watch this, and Jennifer Connelly as Cliff's aspiring actress girlfriend. Only a few years after Labyrinth, and before her breakout role in Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream. You like Jennifer Connelly in Dark City? You'll love her here. You have seen Dark City, right? So, in addition to a fairly spectacular cast, this movie also has gangsters, Nazis, car chases, those big swingy old-timey action punches that get telegraphed from a mile away from the guy's face, which are sort of great. Also an airship, and Timothy Dalton as a smarmy bad guy, which, if you've seen Hot Fuzz, you know is super awesome. Also, there's a diner shaped like a gigantic dog. The Rocketeer is basically a classic pulp adventure story, and if I haven't convinced you yet, it was directed by Joe Johnston, whose most recent credit is another little superhero movie you may have heard of called Captain America: The First Avenger. But anyway, I promised my therapist I would stop talking about the Avengers. So, that's The Rocketeer. What do you think? Contact me at louise@thegeekspeakshow.com with your comments, questions, and unadulterated praise. Next time on Geek Movie Rewind, I get on your case for trying to even talk to me when you still haven't bothered to make time to watch the sci-fi masterworks of Sir Ridley Scott. Seriously, what are you doing with your life?
That's the Geek Movie Rewind. Agree? Disagree?
Send your comments or suggestions to Louise at thegeekspeakshow.com.
It's time for the Geek Speak Show Book Club. Our books
or graphic novels.
Tell us what your favorites are.
Books at thegeekspeakshow.com.
It is time for the book club. Hey, everybody. How's it going? I'm Henry. Rachel is here also. Rachel, do you have a book?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
What is it?
My book this week is...
Wait, let me guess. A Star Wars one?
No.
Oh.
Although I have lots of those to choose from. Don't worry.
Where's the calendar? Wait, let me write it down. She did not pick a Star Wars book this time around.
I have a lot. But this week, I actually wanted to talk about the Hunger Games book. After I took my sister to see the movie, and then both of us went and bought the book, of course, and started reading it. This one's by Suzanne Collins, in case you want to look it up. But why I liked it and why I'm recommending it is because it goes into more detail, obviously, but you really understand Katniss's character better. So the movie was great, right? And we all loved it. But you understand the relationship with her mom, relationship with the other people in the town, and especially with her teammates, more so when you're reading the book. It goes through more of the hardships that her family and the town went through and the history that she has with everybody else over there. So it gives you a little bit more behind and more meanings behind what's going on in the movie. And I think it's definitely worth it if you would like the movie at all. So check it out, Hunger Games book.
Hunger Games, that is up on our book club section. Link to that. Mine is actually 3. Since I wasn't here last week, I said, you know what, I'm going to get 3 books. It's a book actually that's been on. We didn't have the book club feature way back in the beginning of the show, and we did have the author Ken Denmead, who is author of the Geek Dad books, now plural. So Ken, welcome back to the Geek Speak Show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me back, guys.
Great for having you back. Like I said, the first when you were on when the first one came out, it's not a book. It's actually more of a project. Well, what am I trying to tell everybody? You tell everybody what the Geek Book Dads are all about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've all been books filled with projects or experiments, things like that you can do with your kids. Parents or guardians are urged to do fun and exciting science and games and stuff with the kids, so that everybody has a good time with it. Maybe there's a little bit of little hidden learning going on, but it's mostly about, we're always, parents can be so busy, and you get to a weekend and you got some time that you could spend with the kids, but you don't have any ideas about what to do with the kids. And, it's sometimes it's kind of hard to tempt them away from the TV, from the video games, or hanging out with their friends. So, hopefully these books are filled with the kind of ideas that can, inspire the kids and give you that good quality time together.
Yeah, there's a link up on our book club section to all 3 of them also. There are 3. The first one, we know it as the red book, then the blue book, and the purple book, called the Geek Dad was the first one. The Geek Dad's Guide to Weekend Fun, the Geek Dad book for aspiring mad scientists. So give us a few projects from all 3 of the books.
Oh, boy, they all meld together after a while. But so the red book, the first book, Geek Dad, a couple of my favorites out of that were... The first big one I tried was launching a video camera with party balloons. The story I love to tell about that is that I've always so admired the school groups and that get big old weather balloons and then launch video cameras or still cameras up into, it's not quite near orbit or anything like that, but it's 80, 90, 100,000 feet up into the atmosphere. And send back to some amazing pictures. I would love to do that someday. I am not quite that ambitious when it comes to a weekend project. So I worked out how to just launch, something like a little flip camera on a big bundle of party balloons and, tether it with a kite string and you could get it up a few hundred feet over your neighborhood and come back with some really interesting pictures or video and sort of a whole new perspective on your neighborhood.
Hey, King, wait a second. Wait. Let me interrupt you for a second. Who was it? Like Microsoft or something? Didn't they copy that? I think I remember seeing that. Like when I went to see a movie somewhere. You know those little commercials, I guess they are, that play before the movie starts. I remember they took up a laptop and they let it drop. Is it kind of like that? What you're talking about?
Sort of like that. Actually, someone who did a real good version of it was NPR's Science Friday. They did their own version of this and had a camera sort of hanging off the balloons off their building in Brooklyn. And it was really fun to watch.
Yeah, and that's actually the great thing about the projects in all three of the books is that you don't have to follow it exactly as it is. Feel free to add in your own twist, right?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not a genius, and I am sure that other people with specializations or different knowledge will figure out better ways to do some of these things, or different ways. Or a lot of my projects, the idea behind them is it's stuff that you can scrape together the materials out of what's lying around the house, what's in your garage, so that you don't have to go out and spend much money on it. And you're going to have to adapt. If you don't have the exact thing that I mentioned in the book, but maybe you've got something that will work, well, feel free to adapt and figure it out yourself. That's half the fun is learning, right? Half the fun is figuring things out for yourself.
Are there any projects that you were working through or saw when you were making some of these books that you didn't get to include that maybe we'll see in future books?
Oh my goodness. I not so much. I mean, I had the one that I like to talk about that didn't make, or sort of did make it in, but it made it in as an appendix to the first book. I can't even remember now. Was my big failure. I had come up with this awesome idea that I thought would work really well, was to make sort of a pneumatic baseball launcher. At the time, my son was big into Little League, and I figured I could build a device with some sort of like plunger system to it, so that it would be manually driven, and you'd push the air in, and it would launch, sort of like a Nerf dart. It would launch a baseball high enough that you could use it for shagging fly balls. Complete and utter failure. I could not make it work. But you know what? I learned just as much about through that failure as I could for anything else, and so I included it as an appendix piece just because you can't be afraid to try. You can't be afraid to experiment, and often you'll come up with new ideas and do different things as a result.
That's awesome. And I know that there's the Geek Mom blog, too. And in the last couple of books that you've done, you've got some pretty cool people to contribute, but we still don't have a Geek Mom book. What's going on with that?
Well, you will.
Oh.
Actually, there is a Geek Mom book in process right now. I'm not sure they have an on sale date yet, but it should be coming, I believe, before the end of the year. The 4 moms who have actually been writers at Geek Dad for many years, because I had always intended Geek Dad to be, a little more general parenting oriented, up until a point where we were actually able to secure the geekmom.com web domain. At that point, the 4 of those moms and myself went ahead and started it as a side venture to Geek Dad, and it has gotten more and more popular, and those 4 ladies got themselves a book deal out of being Geek Moms. So it is in the works, and you will see it probably before the end of the year.
So you guys heard it first here on the Geek Speak Show. We're talking to Ken Denmead, and author of Geek Dad, which also there will be Geek Moms before the end of the year. That sounds awesome.
Absolutely.
Is one of those moms going to be Natanya Barron? She's a friend of the show. She's been on a few times.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, because I know she does stuff with the Geek Mom blog also.
Yeah, we should send a congratulations shout out to Natanya because they just had their second child.
Yeah, we definitely will do that. So again, it's Ken Denmead. Now, Ken, tell us your story. How did you become the Geek Dad?
I always say, first of all, I am a Geek Dad. I am not the Geek Dad. I may be the figurehead on top of the ship here, but there's a lot of really cool people that help make Geek Dad what it is. It's an amazing story, and I consider myself really lucky, and I owe a lot of thanks to Chris Anderson, who's the editor-in-chief of Wired Magazine. He actually started the Geek Dad blog about 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago, and it was his little pet project just to write up some of the things that he was doing with his kids, and he had a couple of friends on there. But at one point, he put out a big call for new writers. And I had found the blog. I was enjoying the blog because it totally spoke to me and who I was and what I liked to do. At that time, I mean, I still have my day job. I'm a civil engineer, but I gave it a shot because I love to write, and it totally caught my imagination, and I got lucky enough to be accepted as a writer. And after a number of months where I just, I was passionate about it. It is who I am, and so I sort of became the guy who was writing stuff all the time, and I started the podcast. And at one point, Chris just said, "You know what? It's getting to be too much for me. Do you want to take over?" And from that day forward, it has been an amazing ride, just through the incredible people that I've gotten to meet and interact with who write for Geek Dad, and the opportunities that we've all gotten because of the blog. From writing these books, a number of my other writers have been able to go out and do their own writing projects, and all sorts of really cool stuff.
Is it a podcast or a video cast that you do?
It's a podcast. Sometimes we will broadcast the recording live via live stream or something like that. But we're not pros at it, so half the time technical issues keep us from making it a really big thing.
Where can we find it? On the Geek Dad blog, or where can we find the podcast?
The podcast, you can just search for Geek Dad on iTunes, and you'll find it in the podcast in there. It'll comes out every Wednesday morning. You'll see a new podcast post go up on Geek Dad, and we actually alternate every other week. It's all one feed, but we do one that we call just the Geek Dads, which is just usually a bunch of us talking about interesting geeky news of the week, and then alternating weeks we do Hip Tracks, which is myself and one other Geek Dad doing geeky music that you can share with your kids.
That sounds awesome.
It's a lot of fun. In fact, there's a new Hip Tracks up on the site today, Wednesday, so you can go check that out.
There you go. So we have a link actually up on our link section. You guys can go on there and find it all on our link section. So Ken Denmead is the author, like I said, of the Geek Dad. That's my pick this week for the book. Since I wasn't here last week, I decided not only am I going to get the books, I'm going to get the author on here also. Uh-huh. So, Ken, can you tell us, you gave us a kind of breaking news about the Geek Mom book, but what is coming up with you, whether it's a book or anything else you have coming up that you can tell us about?
Well, the biggest thing right now, obviously we are just about 2.5 weeks off from Father's Day. And probably the most amazing thing that's happened this year out of the folks at Wired is that we've started this promotion, this initiative to take over Father's Day and rebrand it as National Geek Dad Day, encouraging parents and guardians, dads and moms to instead of buying dad a tie for Father's Day or any of the old stereotypes that dads don't spend enough time with their kids, so this is the one day a year that they have to, and it just doesn't feel right anymore because modern dads are complete partners in the parenting experience. Let's take it over and make it a day about doing stuff with your kids, about building things, about doing experiments. We've actually partnered with a large number of science museums around the country where they will be holding Geek Dad Day events on Father's Day and doing projects and exploring science and the like. In the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, you'll be able to do it at the California Academy of Science, at Lawrence Hall of Science, and at the Chabot Observatory up in Oakland. And, there's places all over the United States, Denver, Chicago, New York, down at the Houston Space Center, places like that. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I like that idea of the Geek Dad's Days, and then being one of myself, I definitely will take part in this. So I'm assuming we can get all the information on the blog.
Yeah, if you simply go to wired.com/geekdadday, or if you're on the Geek Dad blog, there's a little ad on the side rail there that you can poke on and get all the information.
Yeah, no, all of you who have a Geek Dad or a Geek Dad in the making, you can go to our book club section, order all 3 of the books or one of the books, and give it to your dad for Geek Dad Day. Perfect gift for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So again, it's Ken.
But don't take my word for it.
Yeah. Go ahead. Just open up the book and you'll see what we're talking about. So Ken Denmead, author of the Geek Dad books, the red one, the purple one, the blue one, all 3 of them. And so thanks a lot, Ken, for coming on. You're welcome back anytime. And let me wish you an early happy Geek Dad's Day.
Always happy to be on. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
That's the Geek Speak Show Book Club. Tell us what your favorite books or graphic novels are. Books at thegeekspeakshow.com. Follow the Geek Speak Show on Twitter at Geek Speak Show 1.
That's the number 1.
Become a fan on Facebook. Subscribe on iTunes. Listen to archived shows. And watch event coverage on our YouTube channel. YouTube.com/Geek Speak Videos. Yep, we're everywhere. And you're there listening to the Geek Speak Show.
You are there listening to the Geek Speak Show. Hi, I'm Henry. Rachel is here also. So we did the book club. Now it's time to talk about another book. Actually, this is one that you found, when was it? A couple weekends ago at Big Wow.
Yes, I walked by and I was totally drawn in.
Yeah, I get that. Drawn in. Yeah, that was clever. So it's called Another Myself, and on to talk about it is Etanna from Fourth Way Comics. Etanna, welcome to the Geek Speak Show.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks for coming on. So tell us a little bit about the book that drew Rachel over there, Another Myself.
So Another Myself is basically a really experimental text that was paired up with some oil paintings. For me, I find it to be a very reminiscent of the Maya Deren film, Meshes of an Afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it's called, something to that effect. Because you're seeing sort of the same scene over and over again, but from slightly different perspectives and with sort of a shifting sense of self.
Now, the art was all done by Jason Morgado. Did you guys find him, or did he go and find you guys?
No, this is wonderful. Actually, the way that we meet our collaborators is usually very random. And in this case, Lydia, my creative partner, was getting gelato, and out of nowhere, as she's ordering her gelato, she says to the guy who's handing her the gelato, "Do you make art?" And he says, "Why, yes, I do. I'm an art student." And so they just kind of hit it off right away. They started talking, Lydia started talking about what we do and our process-oriented approach to creating art, and that really resonated with Jason. So it was the beginning of summer, and he said, well, it was a little bit before summer, and he said, I'm going to have some time over this summer, so maybe we could collaborate on something. And it took a little longer. It was a very ambitious project initially, because Jason had never worked on a comic before. And so when we were first looking at, different sketches and different styles of artwork, we had said, these, oil paintings are really beautiful, but not being artists ourselves, we didn't really realize how time-consuming doing an oil painting could be, how long it was going to take for each piece to dry, and that sort of thing. So, and him having never made a comic, didn't realize, wow, I'm going to end up making 60 oil paintings to finish this. So,
that's not the way you usually find artists for Fourth Way? Is it you send Lydia out and say, hey, do you draw?
Yeah, you know what? This is actually we did another comic last year called Dragonfly, and in that case, it was an artist that we met on Craigslist. And now I can't remember with Jay whether we. I'm not sure if he posted the ad or if we posted the ad. No, actually, I'm sure he posted an ad. He basically had posted an ad saying kind of like, a creative person out here, is their life in the universe? And we responded and said, yeah, you want to do something? And we did.
That's kind of funny, too, because Lydia mentioned to me at Big Wow that a lot of the stuff in the comics is kind of about the experience and how different people experience different aspects. And so it's funny that you're meeting your artists in these very random kind of ways.
Didn't she ask you if you drew?
I don't think she did, but I do.
So are you an artist?
Yes, I'm a multimedia artist as well.
Oh, okay, great.
And you're a part of Black Note Music and Radio Free Clearlight too, right? So tell us about those.
Yes. So really the way that we even began making comics is by making music. So myself and Juan Carlos Mendizabal, he's the actual creator of Black Note Music. And many years ago, he formed a little noise improv group called Radio Free Clearlight. And actually, in that original incarnation, it was sort of like a drum circle that met in the Tenderloin. And it's definitely evolved from that. Now, there's no longer, at the time, there was a whole different group of people getting together for these little noise improvisation sessions. And at this point, there's a core group of us. It's myself, Juan Carlos, and Lydia. And we definitely don't really do drum circles anymore. More electronic based and very noise oriented. But that's really how we started. We started collaborating in a really free flowing way with music. Eventually we moved into playing with process photography, which is how we started making comics. But initially all of our projects were web based. So we would, and process is extremely important to us. We don't usually, actually never have we obsessed over how something is going to turn out. We really put more of our attention on how it's going to be made. And so we would go and take photographs of like particular street corners in San Francisco. And then at the time of taking the photograph, we would name the photograph and then take it home and start messing with it in the computer, distorting it, noising it up, if you will. And then we would add little noise clips, sound clips, audio also captured from the same street corner. So that was really the first time that the names that we were giving to the images started to become like stories, like emerging stories.
Yeah,
and eventually it dawned on us.
Yeah, I was going to say that's an interesting way to do art, and because really that's the way most art, whether it's painting or music or anything, that's what it should be, a feeling, because all art is about feeling, right? You both of you guys actually should know about that.
Yeah, definitely. I really am for the sake of creating just for creating. You'll meet people here and there who are very obsessed with, like achieving notoriety or doing art in a particular way. And I'm very for using whatever you can, whenever you can, however you can. Take the moment and be as creative as you can with it.
Yeah, so we're talking
really whether that's. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we're talking to Etanna from Fourth Way Comics. Our link on our link section, you can find everything on there, all the comics that they, because this is not the first book you guys published, right? Tell us a little bit about the other books that you published.
Right. So the first one that we did is part of a series called DFSE, which basically means mood. And for those, it's Lydia and Juan and I. We've collaborated on text. We have taken photographs and processed them to create the images that you see throughout the comic. And right now there's 3 of them, and we hope to reach 12 eventually. But so that was the very first one we did, was our first DFSE.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it's been really fun. And in the middle of there somewhere, I'm not sure if it was after the second DFSA or not, that's when we met Jae-Young Kim and did Dragonfly, and that was a completely different thing. He's a charcoal artist, and both the way we've worked with Jay and with Jason, for another myself, is we basically say, here's the text. We've kind of blocked it up a little bit and said, like, this is a text that's going to appear like on a first page. This will appear on a second page. Now you just draw whatever you want.
So it's a new take on comic art, basically.
Definitely. I mean, it's completely different. We don't have inkers. We don't, have a colorist. It's just text combined with art. This is sequential art.
It's expanding the universe of comic art.
Yeah, and all of you
absolutely.
And all of you can actually look at the art, because it's going to be, you guys are going to have a book launch this coming Friday, June 1st at Mission Comics and Art, a good friend of ours, High Leaf. The address is 3520 20th Street here in San Francisco. It's 7 to 10 p.m. Tell us a little bit about what we can see when we go to the book launch.
So the really exciting thing is, as I mentioned, Jason created more than 60 little bitty oil paintings to put this comic together. And all of those little pieces are going to be on display at Mission Comics. And we'll all be there hanging out. It's going to be Lydia's birthday, so it's even twice the party it could have been. It's an art opening, a birthday party, a comic book signing, you name it, it's happening.
We'll go for a birthday party and the book signing will break out.
Exactly.
Yes. So, like I said, you're all going to be there. Jason's going to be there also, I'm assuming?
Yes, Jason will be there. We should all be there. It's going to be Jason, myself, Lydia, Juan Carlos. So if what I am saying is interesting, you should definitely come down and talk to us some more.
Now, is that the day the book actually launches, or when is the book going to be out?
You know, we did have copies at Big Wow. That was the first time anyone could lay eyes on it. And yeah, this is the actual official launch. That was a preview, if you will. Now it's going to become officially available. It should be up on our website pretty soon here.
Okay, that's up on our link section. And again, it's this Friday, June 1st, 7 to 10 p.m. at Mission Comics and Art here in San Francisco, 3520 20th Street. Very cool place. Like I said, we've been there many times. You guys have heard of Leaf on the show before. So, Etanna, thanks a lot for coming on from Fourth Way Comics and also from Black Note Music and Radio Free Clearlight. It's all up on the link section. You can find out all about them there. You're welcome back anytime to talk about Another Myself or any of the other books that you have coming up pretty soon.
Thanks so much, Henry. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, you guys, take it easy.
The Geek Speak Show will be back in a moment.
We interrupt this program to bring you important news.
Now you'll be able to watch us speaking geek. The Geek Speak Video Show.
Coming soon to youtube.com/geekspeakvideos.
Subscribe now.
Hi, I'm Chris Hardwick from Things, and you're listening to the Geek Speak Show.
Now back to the Geek Speak Show. Hi, we are back on the Geek Speak Show. Yeah, that's Chris Hardwick from many things. Go to the Nerdist channel, YouTube/Nerdist. Watch his bowling show and all the stuff that they have on there. Pretty cool stuff. So, ending another show, getting ready for another big one next week. It was a lot of fun, especially we're going to get blown up apparently now.
I'm so excited for this.
This is the only place where you can actually get excited about being blown up.
I know, right?
It would be even better if you got lightsabered to death. Oh. See, there you go. Only with Rachel would that mean something. So that Marc Zicree and Neil Johnson and company, Ian McKay just joined them also. He will be designing many other things. He designed a lot of the stuff for a little movie that you like.
Just a small one?
Yeah, actually 6 movies that you like. Well,
do you think if they're going to blow me up that maybe he'll design what I get to die in?
He has to. He's their designer.
Oh, yes.
So even more reason to get blown up. We sound weird, but go back and rewind a little and listen to the interview. It'll make sense to you. Like, what are you guys talking about? Getting blown up? So for next week, this is what we're going to do. A couple of cool things. Paul Roman Martinez will be on with us. We met him actually at WonderCon last year, actually at Image Expo earlier this year. Speaking of Chris Hardwick, that's where we met also. But Paul has, it is kind of a comic book, but it's more of a book, a hardcover book, and it's got... Louise did The Rocketeer. This one has that kind of feel. It's based in World War I. It's called The Adventures of the 19XX. It has a lot of Zeppelins and biplanes. And if you liked The Rocketeer, if you liked Sky Captain, The World of Tomorrow, all 3 of you, me included, you'll like this one also. It has that same feel. You'll hear all about that from Paul next week. And one thing that you will really like. First of all, from the guest that you and Ariel had a week ago. It was a week ago, right? It feels like 20 years ago. Hey, when I go on break, I shut everything off. Trust me. But she does her publicity.
Yes, Parker Publicity.
Yeah, she handles a movie that I posted on our Facebook. It's still up there. Those of you that are kids from the 80s will get all the references. Like, for example, when I play this for you, what does everybody think of? Yeah, that club that eats breakfast. Breakfast Club, of course. What else? Weird Science, Pretty in Pink, all those movies. And Star Wars, Raiders, Back to the Future.
Dun, dun, dun.
I could go on all day, but I'm not. We do got to get out. It's almost lunchtime. I'm hungry here. But there's a little movie called Hughes the Force. Get it?
Yes.
Hughes the Force. It's up, like I said, it's up on our Facebook page. You guys can go check it out. Those of you that are kids from the 80s, you'll get all the references. There's some Back to the Future stuff in there. There's some Star Wars, of course. I mean, hello, it's right in the title. And it's an homage, I would say, to the John Hughes movies of the 80s and, of course, Star Wars. So you will love it. I've seen it 6-7 times. Every time I see it, I find something new in there. So will all of you. So the director, J.C. Reifenberg, he will be on with us next week to talk about that. We'll geek out, of course, about 80s stuff, about Star Wars. You can jump in on that one. And maybe he'll offer to put us in the next movie and lightsaber you to death.
All right.
So that'll be happening all next week. Be here for that. And yes, of course, more details. Probably, I'm going to see if Joe can come on and tell you guys all about the Geek Speak video show happening again Saturday. When did I say? June 9th at 12 p.m. I got all these dates in my head. Saturday, June 9th at 12 p.m. We will be there. You guys be there. It'll be similar to Free Comic Book Day, just as big. And like Joe says, every day is a big day at Flying Colors, and it is. Free comics for all of you guys just for showing up. That's all you need, right?
That is all you need.
Oh, we'll be there too with our camera, so you guys can be a part of that. So we will see you all next week to Use the Force with Hughes the Force and Paul Roman Martinez. See ya then.
The Geek Speak Show will be back next week with a brand new episode. In the meantime, follow them on Twitter at Geek Speak Show 1. That's the number 1. Become a fan on Facebook. Subscribe on iTunes. Watch special event coverage and the Geek Speak Video Show on YouTube/Geek Speak Videos. And listen to past shows in the archive section on thegeekspeakshow.com. A big thank you to the Geek Speak Show's content providers, GeekTyrant.com, Collider.com, RamaScreen.com, and MightyVille.com. The Geek Speak Show.